What's going on tonight? I just wanted to just remind you just to get some things kind of off of my chest. Basically, the title of this video is respect the value of every dollar. Okay, respect the value of every dollar. I pretty much I've been all over the place. I know I've been talking about health. I've been talking about relationships. I've been talking about all kind of stuff, but trust and believe always come back to the money. Reason why is, you need money in society. This is still a capitalist system, even though I do believe that this system is, teetering in the balance. The have-nots are complaining. The haves are complaining. Laying off people. There's still a lot of people doing very relatively well. When I go to work, most people I can tell that they're doing okay. Some people are, kind of frustrated. You can tell that they're frustrated to a certain degree. You can say that I'm frustrated on some days. I mean, but it's not so much because of the job. It's just just getting up, early in the morning, going to work, trying to stay awake. That's the hardest part of my role now. It's just basically kind of staying awake. I mean, my job is, I've been doing something that I, really enjoy doing for the last, 15 years. I'm wanting to, move up as far as different higher roles. I definitely want to make more money, and I'm working on doing that, to be transparent. But yeah, my actual desires and passions, I'm doing what I enjoy doing. I do IT work. I work with computers. I work with aspects of that when it comes to delivering hardware to end users for a particular corporation. But all of that aside, I can do that at home. I don't necessarily have to go work some job to do that. That could be something, like I started off over 15 years ago as a hobby, building my own custom computers. I can do that myself. I can do that at home and, build computers and, deal with different technologies, trying to work with different softwares and stuff like that. So it's not so much I have to that I like doing what I'm doing. I do. It's all right. But I mean, I can do that at home, with the right dollar amount. I can do that at home. And that's another question I would ponder is that what would be the dollar amount if your employer, right? Or if you have a business, what would be the dollar amount to pay you off? What would that dollar amount be to pay you off? To basically, hey, the corporate, the CEO, he's a good, good guy, whatever, and a good gal if it's a woman, and he's like basically, you know, the employees that's been, outstanding, has been working for the company. I'm going to buy them out. If they want to stay on, they could stay on, but I want to do a corporate buyout. They get full retirement, you know, or just not even that. Just basically, your CEO personally. They know you, and they explain this. You explain your situation. They know your situation, and they come to you and be like, okay, Susie, or Billy, Rob, what I know you're doing this job, and I know you're doing relatively well, so don't worry about that. But I know you want to do something else. I know you want to do something else. You have this non-for-profit. You're saving street cats. You're saving dogs. And also you have a brand of dog food that you are trying to get off the ground. So, with that said, they ask you what is the dollar amount you need to go on your own? What is that dollar amount that you need to basically put into your endeavors to get started? What would be that dollar amount? And that's the question that you have to ask yourself. And from that question is what is required for you to leave your job, for you to go on your own. What would you need to basically buy your contract out, buy your job out, sell your business even. You got a business. And that's kind of how that goes. Like, I have a particular dollar amount that I'm working towards to basically exit the workplace to go back into entrepreneurship. But before I do all of that, and these are the sectors, I added some things. Um, there's unemployed sector in System D to cover all bases. Cover all bases. You can't leave no stone unturned, right? So, with that dollar amount, before you even get to that point, that's the end point, right? That is the end point. That dollar amount that you need. How about that's not the starting point? How did you get to where you are at, to where you become a wage slave? How did I get to where I became a wage slave? How did you get to where basically you in the trenches? Because we started somewhere, right? How did you start in the trenches? How did you get there? Were you born there? Were your parents in the trenches? Usually that's how that goes. Your parents was in the trenches. They had you, and then you were in the trenches after, you got 18, you got out there, you start shooting back. You dug your own foxhole and you start trying to mow them down, right? So, I mean, basically, one of the reasons why I did this live stream and I talking about this topic is that we don't respect a dollar, basically. We don't respect the dollar. That's one of the reasons why people stay in the trenches and also are in the trenches. We don't we don't respect the value of a dollar. We prioritize other things, right? We What do we prioritize? We prioritize other things, right? What are some of the things that we prioritize? Food, like hot expensive meals, right? Uh Luxurious apartments, luxurious furnishings inside an apartment. I remember me and my ex, we used to talk about, apartments, and we kind of had a disagreement, and our disagreements were about the value of apartments. I didn't think that apartments were so valuable. I everybody has their little pet peeve. Well, mines are rentals, and primarily apartments as well. Anything that is connected to somebody else, I pretty much, I one or another, I probably have a problem with. I'll be honest with you. But some people enjoy that. A lot of women, they live in apartments. They live in a condo, a townhouse. And in case you didn't know what a townhouse was, townhouse is interconnected houses. So it's kind of like an apartment building, but it's not. It is like a house, but it's technically not. It's actually communal housing that's connected to each other in a row. And it's like a row. It's like another time. You can also even call them row houses. I remember I just had my first child. I had my daughter, um, and she was premature, so she had kind of problems breathing, and I was connected to the house next. We're connected to the house next door, so we were living in these townhouses, and the people next door were smoking. I mean, they literally like was chain smoking, and the smoke would come in to the other townhouse next door. And I was like, "Oh, we need to get up out of here." But my ex-wife at the time, um, and even my ex before that, she liked apartments, but she liked apartments in a different scenario. I guess if I have some time to, maybe I'll piggyback on that. But I'll just briefly say my ex girlfriend, before my wife, she just wanted to live in apartments to save money and kind of just have some place to live that's nice, a nice neighborhood, just save her money. My ex-wife just trying to live in an apartment to just survive, just to get something, decent to live in. Like it's more of a kind of a bare necessity type situation. But even still, I looked at what she was willing to pay for an apartment and what she was willing to do to get an apartment as like, this is ridiculous. You know, um, at that time I was already a homeowner. I already had a house. It got demolished, but I knew about real estate. I'm like, okay, I know these creative financing ideas. I knew about rent to own. I knew about seller financing. Um, and I was like, we can get something and fix it up, and then live in a temporary apartment, of course, until it gets fixed up. But it was issues and stuff like that. Trying to get um, just even get along, to be honest. But when it come down to it, even her, she didn't look at money the same way I did. I look at things as either valuable or not valuable. So what I mean by that is, well, obviously this is a lack of value. Baby here, smoking coming from next door. We gonna probably have to leave, go get something else at a later date. She was looking at it as it was gonna be a difficult situation to get another apartment or whatever. I thought different, you know, because I understood the value of money. One of the things I'll say, we both didn't have a lot of money, but we had money. And she didn't value her money as much as I valued the money I had, and also even just the value of money. Because sometimes, here's the thing, sometimes people pretend or even act as if your money is worthless. Let's face it, we live in a racially dynamic world, a racially dynamic country. A lot of times this behavior comes from, let's just say, uh white Americans. They'll act like you'll go to, a store, or even try to get an apartment that they own or whatever, and they'll act like your dollar does not mean anything, or they don't even want your money because they want to, look out or get somebody that looks like them to get a place and put you to the side. And I'm like, I'm the type of person, from understanding, the value of money. um I can take my money somewhere else that is valued, because living in the Chicagoland area, I was used to living pretty much, it's the south side of Chicago and the south suburbs of Chicago. When I moved north, it was just very different. It was just a different type of scenario. One of the things about living in the south suburbs, and even living, I never really lived on the south side of Chicago in no apartment. I used to listen to Common Sense, and before he was called Common, and he would have these songs about how somebody broke into his apartment building. And I was like, you know what? I'm not about to live on no South Side apartment building. So somebody break into my apartment. So I was like, nah, I'm not. I'm a suburban kid. I done grew up in the suburbs. Nah, I'm not. I'm not about to do that. I'll buy some property and live in Chicago. I don't have no problems with that. But apartment, no, not really interested. To this day, I'm not really interested. But um all of that aside, I just basically, um I one of the things I know from living in the south suburbs of Chicago, living in the south side of Chicago, even the west side of Chicago, I never lived on the west side of Chicago either, as far as no apartments or anything, or even a house. But my sister, she lived all over, other than the north suburbs or north side of Chicago. One of the things about the north suburbs is that they have a lot of money. They have a lot of old money, and they're not hurting by no stretch of the imagination as far as the average person, right? Average person is primarily, it's only 10% African American in the northern suburbs of Illinois. So that's like pretty much the Chicagoland area going towards Wisconsin. So, they kind of have a, racial uh, hegemony that is primarily mostly white, some Hispanics, the usual kind of cultural breakdown, but it's not that many black people. And they kind of picky when it comes to, certain things as far as renting out and stuff like that. And I thought it was kind of weird. Like it was almost like going in a time machine in the 1950s and 60s and shit. Like it was an actual issue of getting an apartment. Some of that was credit related. Some of that definitely was credit related. But I was used to the south side of Chicago, south suburbs, and you got money, hey, you know, you got keys, you got the deposit, here you go, you got the job, you got job history, you got at least a reference or two, or credit report. Oh, your credit sucks. Okay, well, you will need at least at the bare minimum 2 months security. Boom, you got keys, you got the place. I was not used to people telling me no when I, had cash in hand. Both were working. Got the down payment and all of this stuff. So it was like it was just kind of different. So it was very challenging to get an apartment, right? So I just say all of that to just, in my mind, I never even thought, even with those issues, oh, well, my dollar does not mean anything. I have to, kiss somebody's ass to give my money. Because I always knew the value of of money, of my own money. Other people might have problems understanding the value of their money, but it's certain things that I went through in life, such as you going out of business, losing jobs, even getting evicted from an apartment, um, just certain hardships in my life where I understood the power of having money. I understood, having money would get you out of a circumstance that, you know, um, you wouldn't otherwise be in if you had the money. So when I got myself back on my feet, and I was gainfully employed, I was saving, I was getting checks coming in, you know, I understood the value of what my money, is. And I don't care if I'm necessarily, I wasn't rich or whatever. I still knew the value of my money. If you don't respect my actual money, you know, then I go somewhere where it's respected. So we ultimately had to get an Indian guy that owns some real estate to rent to us because it was challenging. It was a lot of funny business. It was in this was 2014. Nah, it was like 2015. Yeah, it was relatively challenging, but still, nonetheless, the only thing that I remember was these people, they don't care about money. They care more about other things other than money. And that was just what it was. And it was like it was kind of weird to me. It's not necessarily, I have never been through that, but it was very interesting because in the south side of Chicago, different parts of Chicago is very, very competitive. You don't have time. Like if you don't make a dollar, you know, that day, or make a quota of money that day, you might be kicked out. I remember last Friday, I bought a scooter from somebody. You know, I was looking for a scooter. I just said, I just woke up and I was like, you know what, I want to buy a scooter today. And the guy ended up buying a scooter from, very nice scooter. He needed to pay his rent. He wasn't worried about all this goofy stuff and blah blah blah. He was trying to pay his rent. He was short on his rent. He broke up with his girlfriend. He needed to pay his rent. Those stories like that, not saying everybody in Chicago's broke, but it's like a lot of people, they have, it's more competitive. So it's not like um, you can turn down somebody's money. You know, those types of scenarios are relatively lower and are less experienced because you know you might have been trying to sell something, for example, about trying to rent something for like months. You don't have time to worry about what somebody look like or their racial group or cultural dynamics or whatever the hell that is. So it's just more competitive, and that's just what I was used to. Okay. So I wasn't used to somebody actually not respecting my dollar. Um, but nevertheless, I mean, I wasn't also used to thinking that I, had to deal with any hardships renting somewhere when I got money. Like, I mean, I never, what I'm saying, that never crossed my mind. Oh, I got to go live somewhere and rough it out for a long period of time, when I already have money. But I mean, me and my ex-wife were raised differently. I mean, she was raised, she went through a lot of things that was like more poor, more poor than what I had to deal with. So we just had just different upbringings, you know. But I mean, needless to say, those types of concepts people still have. People still have those concepts. You know, people still give their money away freely. They give their money away very, very easily. And when you think about it, it's like basically you're giving your money away so easily. You're spending your money so easily, right? But who is spending money with you? Who is spending money with you? You got a business. Who's buying from you? And these questions that is what I'm talking about. That's why I don't. I mean, the whole rental thing. Paying rent is making somebody else rich. I don't care where you live, really. To be honest, you're however hard the game is. All across America, it's just harder, right? You're making somebody else rich, however hard it is. However, I mean, if you're in New York paying $3,000 a month for rent, you know, Los Angeles, whatever, paying 2,000 out to live in the hood, $3,000 in New York to live in the hood or whatever. I mean, basically, however hard it is, you're making that money is going towards somebody else and is making them rich, not you. However, that dynamic works out. If the medium property is, $1 million or $500,000, you have to work out that math to figure that out. Uh, I would say it is usually always better to buy some type of property, but not really when it comes to see what the problem is interest. The problem of that scenario is interest. That's where it becomes a problem because, for example, if you um, let's do some New York and LA math, real estate math. Um, minimize this real quick. And that's why, and then here's the thing, people probably when they hear me, when they say, damn, you live in Gary, Indiana. Wow, what the fuck? And it's like, to be honest, right? To be honest, what's the difference between, like, okay, me living in Gary, Indiana, or you living where they film Gin and Juice in Los Angeles? I'll wait. I'll wait for you. What's the difference? The difference is weather, and you in LA, and yeah, the house that you live in is probably $1 million. Where mine, fixed up is less than $100,000. And I mean, yeah, it might have more, going on in LA or whatever. And all of the, gangs to go with it, right? But the concept still remains. You still live in the hood. You just live in a different hood. You still live in the ghetto. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's just a high price ghetto. You live in New York, you living near the projects, and you paying a little reduced amount versus where you would live. But a lot of people still rent. So let's just do the math here. $500,000. Okay. Let's go to mortgage calculator. You know, let's put in a mortgage calculator and do the math here. You know what I'm saying? So the current rate is about 7%. So let's include taxes and fees. Let's let's put in New York. Okay, $500,000. Okay. The down payment, let's see here. 3%. Let's see what 3% would, let's see how that would go. So yeah, you should have about 15 grand, right? Should be able to come up with 15 grand. So that's 3%. The state is New York. Let's go to New York here, right? New York. And you probably can't even find nothing, Harley, for $500,000, but an apartment. And your credit score is like let's just say minimal. Okay, property tax. Yeah, it's about right. It's about right. So yeah, you'll be paying about 4,498 dollars a month for a mortgage for 30 years. So that's a lot of money. That's why the rent versus own gets kind of difficult in New York and in LA and shit like that. It gets difficult, and I understand, but at the end of the day, you paying that to live in the hood. Just to own in the hood, you're in a rough part of town. You're paying, for a $500,000 property. You're paying, $4,000 plus a month on that property to live in a you know um, rough part of town. You know, so the thing is that it's just an advance for it's advanced financially because it's a lot going on in New York. It's a lot going on in LA, even Chicago. Chicago is competitive as well. So it's like basically those are the things that you gotta ask yourself. Uh, do I want to rent or do I want to own? A lot of times, people they can barely afford that. And then that 50-50 argument becomes kind of more of an argument because it's like, well, you might need a roommate. I mean, what I'm saying? $2,000, y'all split the rent. I mean, split the mortgage for like $2,000. Y'all get married, gotta split the rent. I mean, the mortgage for like $2,000 or whatever, and then come up with an agreement as far as like you gonna pay extra on it when you get your tax returns. I mean, those conversations get more involved because it's just a different you know situation. $500,000. You don't, even in Illinois, you don't have to get a house that's $500,000. I mean, you definitely will be getting a house for $500,000. It'll be damn near a mini mansion, depending on where it is, and you don't necessarily have to get that. You can get now in Illinois, um, in like a C grade neighborhood, you can get a house for like $150,000. That's slightly move in ready. That's in like C grade shape. So it's not like, I mean, the thing is that uh it's more of a conversation when it's you know you living in New York and LA or anywhere where the rent prices are high and the cost of living or cost to purchase a home is high, right? Those are those are conversations that is more valid. But it still remains the fact, respecting your dollar. I'm a son of an immigrant. Immigrants respect the mighty dollar bill because they remember being where they were from, and that dollar, the exchange rate was like ridiculous. So when they come over here and they making dollars, they respect that dollar. You know, I mean, it just is what it is. But a lot of people take it for granted because we feel privileged. We feel very, very privileged. Um, we think that it's just unlimited amounts of money, and it's a psychological problem. Actually, that concept is actually psychological because you're thinking of something that's not really true. You're thinking that there's unlimited amounts of money that you're going to get, which money is infinite, but you actually getting it, it's in the what, Federal Reserve, right? They print money. It's money all over, but you actually getting unlimited money. That's where it becomes complicated. It's not necessarily going to, like, fall out of the sky into your pocket. So it's like it's a psychological problem of why people take things for granted. That's actually a psychological issue that I'm actually looking up right now of what that is called. Because everything is called something. And I'm trying to look up what that is actually called so I can actually learn something as well. It's basically taking something for granted is typically defined as assuming without question that you will not lose it, or at least not lose it anytime soon. It means feeling sense of security and permanence about something that is not in reality secure or permanent. In other words, it's an illusion, but possibly a necessary one. People do this with money. I talked about relationships over the weekend. People do this with each other. They get a nice woman, a guy get a nice woman, a woman get a nice man, and takes him for granted. She thinks that she can find, the grass is greener on the other side, and then she realized, you know, she can't really, is the guys that she's finding are not on the same level as the guy that you left, or the guy that you thought that you can get somebody else to somewhat easily replace. You know, that guy is not necessarily easily replaced, right? So yeah, people do that with money as well. They're like, oh well, I can easily replace, all of this money that I spent over the weekend. And it's not easy. You know, that's a concept that we all struggle with, right? That's something that why I created this book here, the Millionaire Savings Plan, because a lot of times if you spend money over and over again and you don't have no goals, you don't have no budget, you don't have some type of financial plan, this book solves all of those issues. Literally solves all of those issues. It's just up to you to work on them. And it's not going to necessarily solve the issue of your mental issue, because it's a mental problem, right? Yeah, you probably, I'm not going to say you need medication or psychotropics, but you know, it's something that is a mental problem that a lot of people have, is taking things for granted. I never forget. I was a cab driver. I was driving a cab. This was 2008. Yeah, 2008. Was driving a cab. I needed a car, and I had quit my job, so I also needed a job too. So I was like, oh, I'll just drive a cab. And I was driving a cab, and I was in Schaumburg, Illinois. There's a lot of Jewish people in Schaumburg, Illinois. And I picked up this old Jewish guy. And this is how old I am, right? Or old this story is. I had a Garmin GPS that took AA batteries. So this Garmin, I picked the guy up, and I don't know what the hell. Without that Garmin, I would have never been able to be a cab driver. Never. I don't know how they did it, but I don't know how my father did it, man. I mean, like, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Now, he got in the car. He told me where he was trying to go. I plugged it in my GPS unit, and I was on my way. I guess because he was old or whatever, he was like, I don't need, you don't have to put it in the GPS unit. I can find it. I know where to go. So okay, I was like, okay, I'll listen to you. Okay, all right. So I started driving where he directed me to go. So long story short, he gave me the wrong, turns or whatever, the wrong directions basically. And he was pissed. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you worried about like an extra few bucks because you made the wrong turn? Because the meter was running, by the way. meter was running. So I'm like, okay, it's kind of comical because it's like, damn, why do you just let me just put the coordinates in the GPS and let good old technology provide the way, which was invented by GPS was invented by a black woman, I believe. So um and yeah, I was like, okay, he was pissed, and I was like, oh, okay, well, it happens. But I was kind of tickled because I made some extra money, but it was like it wasn't like I made $1 million, but he was pissed off of the little extra dollars that he had to pay, you know, because he made a mistake. He probably, what I'm saying, was born, this was like 2008. He's probably in his 70s. So he was probably born in the early 1900s, 19 like a little after World War 1, uh or nah, about like before World War 2. So yeah, I mean, things were very cheap, you could buy a house for like uh, less than $1,000. You could buy a car for like a brand new car for like you know $200 and shit like that. Like his stuff was cheap, man. You could if you look on these like old ads for like cars and houses, that shit will humble the hell out of you, boy. But people weren't making that much. They was only making like, you know, let me look up the average income for let me look up the average income for like a 1935. The minimum wage for 1935. Minimum wage was 25 cents an hour. 25 cents an hour.
Stop the cap.
25 cents an hour. So, you know, that was what the minimum wage was. So, I mean, you wasn't making that much money, but stuff was inexpensive. But you had to work your ass off to get a house if you was making minimum wage in the 1930s. So that was a lot of money to him, you know. And not all Jewish people was rich. I mean, you know, that was a gradual generational move. Even Jews now, they not all rich. You know what I'm saying? I never forget I went to a Jewish synagogue. It was a homeless shelter, but it was a Jewish synagogue. And that was tripped out. I wasn't homeless. I was just I was just like, I don't know. I was just like, I don't know. I was just like fucking around. Like I walked so far, I was like, damn, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? I was doing some dumb shit. I was doing dumb shit. Like, I was not homeless. I was living with my parents. I just wanted to, I don't know. I just wanted to experience what one night in a homeless shelter was. I don't know, man. I mean, it just weird, but yeah, and I never been in a Jewish synagogue either. That was my first time going into a Jewish synagogue. So I was literally in, I swear to God, I was in a homeless shelter. I was laughing my ass off. You know, I had a kufi on too. Um, because I was like, I was still like practicing Islam. I had a kufi on. I was in the homeless shelter laughing my ass off. And I was just like, it was like I was having a good time. I was bored. This was before I had children. I mean, like I don't know, man. I mean, I didn't value a lot of things that I didn't know what I know now. But it was an interesting experience. Um because yeah, I used to sell all the tapes and stuff about Illuminati and the Jews and all of them being rich. It's like, man, I mean, these guys was sitting there, they was not rich. I mean, not all of them was Jews, but um, I mean, certainly it was like, a whole bunch of black people in there. And then it was, it was some people that were actually, yeah, they were Jews, they was homeless or whatever the hell. And yeah, like true story. But I mean, I say all of that to say that yeah, some people, man, they really value a dollar, man. They come from like, people come from India and different parts of the world where they don't have public bathrooms, they don't have sanitation and water treatment facilities. They don't have modern plumbing. Living in a shack or somewhere. They value a dollar, man. They don't even, man. They ain't trying to lose a dollar. I used to work. I used to work with Indians and when I in my hometown where I grew up too. Man, they'll get robbed and then they won't even give up the money. The guy got to hit him upside the head with the gun because they ain't trying to give up that money. You know, um, and then a lot of times it goes even worse. But yeah, they are not. They are very very serious about money. You know, very very serious because they know how the value of currency. They know where they came from is not, they don't have no mansion to go back to, So they trying to create something over here. And they very, very serious about it. And it just goes to, like I said, the question I ask again is, okay, you go and buy that Fendi, that Prada, the Gucci, the Louis Vuitton, the Michael Kors. You go open up a shop and you start you a brand and see who buys from you. You see if you can get your brand in the department store. See how easy that is. And you'll respect. Like one of the things I'll say is I'll tell anybody, go get you a bunch of merchandise, go to a local swap meet or flea market and go try to sell some stuff. Go actually try to be on the other side of the spectrum. Try to actually try to go into business. Try this. Try being a business owner for a week or a month as an experiment and see who supports you. See who spends money with you. And it may humble you. It may humble you to understand that, basically you running to everybody else spending all your money, but they not running back to you. They not running back to you. And in many cases, they're not hiring you because you don't respect your dollar.